Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's presentation of Upgrading to Your Dream Avionics Panel by BendixKing. My name is Jeff Simon. I'm president of SocialFlight. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, SocialFlight's the free web and mobile app that's dedicated to supporting general aviation. You can visit socialflight.com or download the SocialFlight mobile app for Apple and Android devices, and you'll get free access to over 10,000 aviation events, destinations, and airport restaurants. You'll even get a weekly email with a list of all the aviation events happening in your local area. Our mission is to give pilots like yourselves more reasons to get out there and fly. Now, in addition to events that you can fly to, we also have online events, which is why we're all here this evening. One of SocialFlight's partners is BendixKing, one of the most iconic names in general aviation avionics. BendixKing reached out to me to discuss the benefits of upgrading to state-of-the-art avionics and their new program, which makes that easier for aircraft owners to upgrade and also to maintain their avionics on an ongoing basis. So what we did is we put together a two-part presentation. I'll take the first half and I'll discuss my thoughts and experience on upgrading, and that comes from my perspective as a pilot, an aircraft owner. I'm an AMP and IA mechanic, and also someone who's been in the avionics industry, frankly, for a couple of decades. And then I'll hand it over to Sapan Shah, who is from BendixKing, and he will explain BendixKing's new Total Avionics Plan. I'm looking forward to learning more about the program myself and listening to all there is to it, because anything that can help us expand and build on our aircraft, I think is just great for aviation as a whole. Now, before we get started, here's a few tips. A recording of tonight's presentation will be available on socialflight.com. Usually takes about 24 hours, and we'll send you a link to that by email after the presentation. Feel free to post questions during the presentation. There's a Q&A section that is part of this webinar tool. And what we're going to do is, because everyone's situation with upgrading their aircraft is unique, I think that the best way to approach this one is ask your questions, and we're going to have the experts at BendixKing reach out to you individually, and then they can answer what your aircraft is, your panel, your needs, and all the things that go into dealing with custom financing situations like this. So feel free, post your questions in the Q&A section, in the question section of the tool, and you can expect a response directly from BendixKing. So all of that put aside, let's get started with the presentation. So what we're going to talk about this evening, we're going to start by kind of going over avionics. I'm pretty passionate about this topic and pretty much about everything that has to do with aircraft flying and maintenance. But we're going to talk about what are the benefits of it, what are some of the challenges that happen in the way that people typically upgrade and go through avionics, what type of choices do they have, and then I'm going to hand it over, and we are all going to learn about BendixKing's Total Avionics program from Sapan Shah. So when we talk about some of the benefits of upgrading, I don't want to be simplistic about this, but it really does matter. The most important thing is, as aircraft owners, one of the biggest reasons that we do this, that we fly, that we own an aircraft, is the passion of doing it and the experience of owning an aircraft. There is no doubt that you can take a look at aircraft ownership and you can break it down and say, hey, some people own aircraft, light aircraft for the purpose of transportation, period. Others to support their business, and others for pleasure. But general aviation is a passionate area. And in my experience, the reality is that so much of aircraft ownership isn't something that can so easily just be rationalized. In a way, it would be like talking about the best way to get from the top of a mountain to the bottom of the mountain is through, being passionate about skiing. It's about the experience, and that's a big part of it. And if you can take this opportunity and really be able to transform your aircraft to the panel of your dreams, that makes a difference in our flying experience. It really does have a pretty major impact on it. And I think that, so many people wait to do that or postpone it or do it in piecemeal fashion. and miss so much of what the experience could be, that I think it's a bit of a shame. It makes me think about, many, many years ago, I was involved in the real estate business, and I always was amazed that, everyone would wait and wait, and then when it was time to go sell their house, that's the time that they would wait for someone to say, look, you're just not going to get the money out, or you're not going to do this unless you upgrade something. And they miss this great opportunity to live with these, improved, the dream, live with the dream of what they had, the dream bathroom, the dream flooring, the dream kitchen, whatever it is. And I do think that actually translates to the passion of flying, because when I talk to owners, when they take delivery out of their avionics shop of an aircraft with a brand new panel that's been done, the pleasure they have of flying with that is really remarkable and hard to put a price on. And the only other thing I'll say, as I kind of drone on about this passionate part of it, is flying is unique because it's a privilege to us. We have everyone on this call has gone through and paid their dues of the training and everything that goes into making this a priority in our life. And yet it can be fleeting. It can be something that is subject to our medical or financial or anything else that happens. And so I really do treasure the ability to make the most of it and to use the opportunity that we have to try to get the best panel or the best thing or the best aircraft possible, to give yourself that experience in the limited time that we all have. And that it's just something I believe in. The next point here is the importance. This is where we really get down to something that's not passion, but real nuts and bolts. And that is, the fact is that the difference between flying behind some older avionics versus really upgrading the state-of-the-art avionics absolutely increases safety and reduces your workload. That is especially true if you fly IFR, if you aspire to fly IFR, if you're going to be doing any of these things. Single pilot IFR is a challenging thing, and I do it routinely, and the quality of the avionics that you're flying behind makes all the difference in the world. It gives you redundancy and it gives you safety to do that. And that actually plays directly into the next point, which is the difference between the avionics versus paint or interior or something else that gives you pleasure out of your aircraft is that the avionics directly translate to the capability of the aircraft. If you don't have a WAAS navigator currently, you can't fly LPV approaches. There's things that you actually won't be able to do. If you don't upgrade to ADS-B, there's airspace that you can't go into. And if you're like me and you actually fly to places like Canada and things like that, then even other things like upgrading to ADS-B with diversity, which means actually making sure you have an antenna on the top, because Canada is requiring diversity in their ADS-B systems before you'll be able to fly in Canada soon. And so without those investments, you're somewhat cut off from some of the things that the aircraft could do. And a lot of that translates into that last point, which is increasing the resale value and saleability of the aircraft. And so as an aircraft owner, with a somewhat, shrinking market out there, it's really important to make sure that when the time comes that you want to actually liquidate your assets someday, or even hand it down to someone, that's not the time you're doing that investment that we talked about of the kitchen upgrade, for example. Enjoy it now. Get everything in there now, because it makes all the difference in the world. I'll be very honest that our A36 Bonanza that we have at SocialFlight, we got a steal on this years ago when we got it. And the reason was no one had made an investment in it. And because no one had made an investment in it in quite some time, it was just not selling. And it was getting marked down and marked down and marked down until it actually became a real big, a deal for us to be able to get at that price. It wasn't a good deal for the seller. And the reality is, at that point, had they made the investment, they would have had all the benefits of enjoying it, and then not had it sit on the market for, more than a year or whatever it did. So Not to talk down, that I really do think that these are all key points to consider when you're doing it, and if something can make it possible to achieve these, then I think it really does matter. If you are going to AirVenture or any show where you have the opportunity to take a look at BendixKing's new avionics suite, I would really encourage you to do it. It lets you see, these are all the products right now installed in this Lancer. It is, I believe the Lancer is actually going to be at the show, and Sapan can comment on that, but this is a whole suite of avionics that has a huge amount of interoperability. And that's a real key for what makes this panel something that I'm such a fan of, because all of these parts of this product suite have the ability to have an open architecture where they can you have communication on many different ways with many different products from even other companies. And that's really important. And BendixKing, we did a presentation on this already. But it's a really impressive suite that puts the best of breed products all together in one place. And I just wanted to show that to you because the hope is that this new program can make it possible to actually achieve a panel like this within your budget. I think that's certainly the goal. That's what I'm looking to hear from them. Well, the bottom line is, unfortunately, and due to certification, avionics are expensive. And this kind of gives you an idea, the AeroNav 900 being, over $17,000, attitude indicator, if you're looking to upgrade your ADS-B, and these are just list prices. This doesn't include installation, this doesn't include everything else. It goes all the way up, obviously, to, a complete flight deck. And that, I think it's an important point that it's a lot of money, and the idea of finding some way to finance it is appealing to me. And I think important to a lot of people. Now, the typical way of doing this, and this is something that I've seen for years, and I have a lot of respect for it. I understand money is tight, and we can only do what we can afford. We own the aircraft we can afford. We upgrade it in a manner that we can afford. We fly in a way that we can afford. But if you take an approach of upgrading piece by piece by piece when it comes to your panel, there are some real challenges with that. And I have seen it time and time again in the avionics shop. The first one is you're paying for repetitive downtime. So if you or someone looks at the ADS-B mandate and says, well, eventually I want to put a primary flight display in, eventually I want a WAAS navigator, but for the moment I just want to comply with the ADS-B mandate, they're still going to tear into your panel. They're still going to find the challenges and the gremlins and the extra wiring that exist behind the panel. And that's going to give you that downtime and that inefficient installation that happens. And then each time that you go back, there's going to be a lot of repeat business for the avionics shop in terms of taking the interior of the aircraft out again, so that they can install antennas, so they can get back and run wires, etc. Opening the panel back up again, dealing with issues that have come up. The inefficiency and the added downtime of not having the aircraft available to you and all the things that go along with that are dramatic. I don't have exact numbers to go on, but from what I have experienced myself and what I have seen in the avionics shops with other customers, I would imagine that it wouldn't be a surprise to say that every time you do it, you're paying 1.5 times what you would if you had the opportunity to do it at one time. And so it really does make a difference to be able to architect and tear into your aircraft only once in a longer period of time, if that is at all possible. The other thing that becomes a real problem is ongoing repairs when you take this piecemeal approach. I'll give you an example. A lot of the cheaper solutions that are on the market for basic ADS-B compliance rely on your existing transponder. And so you may have an older Mode C transponder, and then you get one of these UAT units or something else that kind of listens to it and gives you ADS-B compliance, but is still reliant on the older transponder. Well, those older transponders have a failure rate that's pretty high, and a cavity tube replacement or something else for that really ends up putting you in a position that you have gone and paid for an install that seemed like a great deal at the time for ADS-B compliance, and then soon after you're upgrading your transponder. Well, again, now what are you going to upgrade your transponder to? You're probably now going to look at it and say, well, if I knew I had to replace my transponder, I wish that I would have gotten a different transponder to begin with and solved it all at the transponder instead of out at a different part of the aircraft, just with compliance and piggybacking on that. The same is true of communications radios. The same is true of your gyros, your vacuum system that could be ripped out if you don't have to deal with it. There's a lot of ongoing repairs that could get pulled out, and in many cases they tie directly into your autopilot, and that is also can just go into the stratosphere. I've seen autopilot repairs and ongoing issues, just money after money after money, and by the time you look back on it, you look back and say, man, I spent more money over a 5-year period by going piece by piece by piece than I would have having my aircraft down just once, having this beautiful new panel done with everything I wanted to, new capabilities, and beaming with pride and feeling great and having so much fun flying. And that's really the key, right? It's fun and it's capability. And that goes in, of course, to the next one, which is limited warranty. And the last part, which is, I'm also interested to hear from BendixKing on this, which is this concept of recurring database. One of the challenges of kind of owning an aircraft and with modern technology is databases. Everything's got a database. And having a means to consolidate and get that essentially covered on an ongoing basis is really important. And databases are a safety issue. They're a compliance issue. And it matters in everything. It matters in places you may not even think about it. A lot of the new radios that are out there have databases so that they can decode what's coming in from your stations. A lot of the new transponders or things like that go out there, if anything that has airport identifiers on it has to decode it, be surprised what has databases in it. And most primary flight displays have their own databases as well. So consolidating that, putting it together as well as part of one approach is really, really important to budgeting it out. And so with that, that's kind of my soapbox about things that I've kind of experienced and why I'm so passionate about it. I will hand it over to Sapan Shah to talk to you more about their particular program. And if anyone has questions for me at some point, I'm really happy to help. You can always reach out to me directly at SocialFlight, and I'm happy to help with my experience, tips, installation things, anything that can help you kind of choose from the market of what's out there and make the best decisions possible so that you can make every flight hour count. Sapan?
Thank you, Jeff, for hosting us here. Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to talk about what some of the options that BendixKing has to allow you to upgrade to your dream panel now. So when we think about, upgrading our avionics or purchasing of avionics, there are a lot of different options with different degree of difficulty. The most painful one for at least most of the people is you want to put down your own money. If you can afford it outright for both the equipment and installation. But then when you do that, you have to consider the opportunity cost of that money. Can you do something else with that? Invest in S&P 500. Historically, you can get 8% year over year. And we all know last 5 years have been amazing. So that's sort of like the most painful option, at least for the most people. The second option, which has its own complications, is you can simply go to a bank, get a loan for what you need, or refinance your existing aircraft loan. For that, you need to have enough equity in the aircraft to meet the loan to value ratio. You will also have to share all of your financial documents, tax returns, and that could be intrusive for some people, depending on your personal or business situation. You can also get unsecured loans, but then those are really expensive. So both of these options that I just kind of talked about have a lot of friction. requires you as the owner and the pilot to take the risk of the investment, manage the dealer and the installer, dealer installer for getting the avionics upgraded. In my eyes, there's a third and an easy option, and that's what we want to talk about today, is to get the avionics under a subscription. So this has been happening in other industries, a lot of industries, and even in aviation with airlines and charter operators for quite some time. So this innovative solution allows you to get your avionics installed quickly in a worry-free manner. And so next couple of charts, I'm going to walk you through in the details in what is this option, why are the fleet operators and airlines using it today, and how can you take benefit of it. So when we think about airlines or even smaller charter operators, they don't pay for equipment in cash. They always have some sort of plan. A lot of you must be familiar with the Honeywell Maintenance Service Plan, or MSP, for the main engines. Airlines have similar plan for their engines, APUs, and even landing gears. They don't even pay for their landing gears. It's a cost per landing rather than buying it outright. In the avionics world, Honeywell has been selling HAP, or the Honeywell Avionics Protection Plan, for the longest time. And this subscription service that I'm talking about here is just an evolution of all of these plans. So what we see here is that when we think about these big organizations that have a lot of analysts whose full-time job is just to figure out what is the best thing economically for them, almost all of them decide that it's cheaper and convenient for them to get some sort of subscription, get a subscription plan rather than buying the equipment. So going into detail, next slide, Jeff, like why do these charter operators and airlines use a subscription plan? So let's talk about different reasons, right? Number one, and most importantly, you don't have to bring in any upfront capital. You get the best equipment, the state-of-the-art equipment, avionics available today, without a major upfront investment. And secondly, when you're on a subscription plan, the OEM is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep. As long as the subscription is active, there are no repair costs to you. There is a warranty coverage. So you know exactly how much this subscription is going to cost you, and that's all you're going to pay. There isn't going to be any surprises. The sign-up process is much more simplified than going to a bank and getting a loan, as I kind of mentioned just a couple minutes ago. All the capital that you would have otherwise invested in avionics can be now used for expanding the operations, if it's an airline or a charter operator. And in your case, it can be used for other investments. As I mentioned, right, this subscription plans, the key attraction for these operators is a very predictable cost of ownership. They know exactly how much they are going to pay per month or per flight hour. There are no surprises because, as I told you, nobody likes surprises. Finally, when you are on a subscription plan, you get a much higher level of service. You are paying a monthly fee. There is an ongoing relationship between you and the OEM, and they have an obligation to maintain the equipment. So it provides you just this higher level of service. And all of these benefits essentially boil down to a worry-free solution for procuring your equipment. You're procuring your state-of-the-art equipment today so that an airline can focus on operations, and in your case, you can focus on enjoying flying. Next up. So now I want to go deeper. So now that we kind of talked about, look, subscriptions have been working really well for operators, charter operators. I want to go deeper into, how does this make sense for you? The plan that we are introducing is called the Total Avionics Plan. The idea is you buy this from us and we will manage everything for that avionics. So the next chart here, just kind of describes what is BendixKing Total Avionics Plan. So we have designed this service to be affordable. You get the avionics today with a predictable fixed cost. And it's a comprehensive service so that it covers every aspect of the equipment. To be specifically, what does the Total Avionics Plan cover? We will cover the complete installation. So, once you have selected which avionics you want, the hardware will be shipped to the BendixKing dealer directly from us. BendixKing will pay for the installation. So you don't have to worry about that part. And I think Jeff was talking about database and software charts and updates. The subscription also covers the monthly, yearly updates required. That would be all included. You will still get it from the same source, but you don't have to sign up separately and pay separately for those subscriptions. The subscription plan covers those updates. And finally, throughout the term of the subscription, the equipment is covered. So in case something were to happen, we will replace it and repair it. So kind of like explained a lot of it. I'm sure we're gonna go into a little bit more detail about how it all works and what if this and what if that. But if you have questions, feel free, as Jeff said, just kind of type it in and we'll get back to those questions. So again, what are the benefits of Total Avionics Plan? And some of them are similar to the benefits of subscription. The biggest one is, hey, you have a single point of contact. BendixKing will support you before the purchase. We will provide the hardware and the installation. We will support you during the installation. And then throughout the life of the subscription, BendixKing will be there with the warranty coverage. BendixKing will be your single point of contact, which will make things easier for you to manage. And then, as I mentioned, right, not only will we cover the installation cost, but the warranty is installed. All future software updates that come with new features that either improve situational awareness or reduce workload will be made available to all subscribers at no extra cost, right? So it's like basically getting new features and new capabilities without paying anything additional as long as you are a subscriber. And finally, we believe this is the simplest and easiest and the quickest way of obtaining your avionics. With the BendixKing Total Avionics Plan, you get a total peace of mind for your avionics upgrade. So I know these are some of the standard questions that we get all the time as when we talk about the Total Avionics Plan. The first one is, okay, so I am a subscriber and I'm really loving it, but it's time for me to upgrade the aircraft, to move on to a different aircraft. So what happens if I want to sell my aircraft? Total Avionics Plan can be transferred over to the new owner, obviously subject to credit approval. Or you can end the subscription earlier by buying out the equipment rather than waiting until the end of the term. And the second one, what if I want to just buy out the avionics right now rather than waiting the end of the term? And so that answer is very similar to the first one. We are investing, BendixKing is investing quite a bit by giving you the equipment, by paying for the installation, by providing the warranty coverage. So if you do decide to buy out the equipment before the end of the term, we will provide you a quote in the and you basically have to buy out the equipment just like if you were selling your aircraft. The third one is, okay, so this is all great. I like the subscription plan. Now I want to further upgrade something and add more avionics from BendixKing. That's very easy. We will just give you a quote of what that additional avionics will cost. We'll add on to you your existing subscription and basically amend your subscription. And then finally, what happens at the end of the subscription, right? So these subscriptions could be a 5-year subscription or a 10-year subscription. Essentially, at the end of the subscription, there are a couple different options. Number one is you always have the option to renew the subscription. You're gonna constantly get the same level of service if you renew it. Or you have the option of just buying out the equipment at the price that is listed in the contract. And that's going to be very essentially a nominal administrative fee. And that would be obviously communicated to you when you sign the subscription. Or obviously, you decide that, hey, you want to just get a new set of avionics at the end of the subscription, so then you can just return the equipment back to BendixKing. So those are I know some of the standard questions that we get, so I wanted to just address them right away. If you still have more questions, like what is this, what is that, please just let us know and we will get back to you. So how do you pay for this? There are two different ways of paying for it. Number one, as I said, right, it could be a 5-year subscription or a 10-year subscription. A 10-year subscription on a per month basis will definitely be cheaper than the 5-year. But essentially, you can have a flat rate for either of those two terms. So regardless of how much you fly, that is the amount that you will pay throughout the term of the subscription, no more, no less. Then there are some people, especially in the charter operators or people that actually generate revenue by flying, would like to pay for every flight hour they fly. And we can also have a subscription customized in that manner so that we can provide them a per flight hour rate, depending on whether they want to commit to a 250 hours a year or 1,000 hours a year. So we have a lot of different ways in which the subscription can be customized for you and your need. So let's say, after this, you're interested on signing up for this. So how do you go about it? Essentially, the idea is it kind of breaks down in first, you wanna identify what avionics you want and then kind of apply for it. So the application process is pretty simple. You kind of reach out to us, say, hey, here's a list of equipment that we want, and we will provide you a quote, and we will start, we'll ask you to basically fill out the form, give us your detail on your aircraft as well as yourself. We will process the application. Once the application is approved, there will be, some, I would say, some sort of credit check on it, because essentially we are giving tens of thousands of dollars of equipment as well as installation. So we'll be doing a credit check. Once the application has been approved and processed, you make your first monthly payment. BendixKing ships the equipment to the dealer. We also cover the installation, as I mentioned. The installer will get your aircraft upgraded. You approve the installation, and you fly away, and then there will be just a monthly billing from BendixKing. So it's a pretty simple process. And we will also be talking about this quite a bit at the AirVenture show in a couple of weeks. So if there is interest either today or during the show, please reach out to us, come to our booth, and we'll be more than happy to kind of get you started on here. So here are some of the key takeaways from this presentation today. There are different ways of purchasing or upgrading the avionics, and everyone's situation is different, and there will be a different answer for different people. But for the most part, subscription could be an ideal option for majority of the folks. There are a lot of advantages of subscription services I mentioned, mainly that it's a very free, you get to upgrade today without putting in the upfront capital. BendixKing has this innovative plan called Total Avionics Plan, which is a subscription service, which is very comprehensive and affordable. And so it basically considers all the different cost components that will come into play when you are upgrading and using an avionics. So we think that this could be a very strong option for a lot of you folks. So I would encourage you to kind of consider it and reach out to us for more, either with more questions or with a quote, and I'll be more than happy to help you out in getting started. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for giving us your 40 minutes on a Thursday evening. Thank you again, Jeff, for hosting us. Hopefully this was educational for a lot of different options available. and we are excited to share and help you in getting your aircraft upgraded.
Thank you so much, Sapan. And again, we will have a recording of this, but anyone who has questions, please, you have the information. We'll leave this up on the screen for a little bit, and you can feel free to send your information, and BendixKing will respond to it. So really appreciate that. And if anyone is coming to AirVenture, would love to see you. I have a couple presentations myself that'll be happening there on Tuesday and on Thursday, having to do with a really, really cool adventure. It's flying by the numbers, and it is flying by the numbers 5 hours to France in a Beechcraft Bonanza. So little teaser on that one. Please come by. Hopefully I'll get to meet you in person and tell you a little bit about my journey and show you some interesting things there. So again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm Jeff Simon, and thank you again, Sapan, for joining us. Blue skies, and have a good evening.